Hello, everyone. Checking in with my beautiful, both inside and outside, almost teenager, next week, 13 teenagers are joining me today for today's show. So, this is week 4 of our 30 minutes a day self love challenge. And actually, this week was really going to focus on being ready for the new norm. But because there's been so much going on, and it's not just the new norm, right? As we talk about the COVID-19, it's also what's been happening for centuries as relates to the social injustices impacting so many different communities. And in particular, we're talking about our Black community. So they're feeling a little silly right now. We were kind of silly just before camera, but it's a good thing. It's a good thing that they're able to laugh and we're able to joke around, just to kind of lighten the mood. And you might ask me, why would I want to have my teenage granddaughters on with me to talk about the issue? And it goes right with the title of today's show. And the title is, if you haven't seen it already, it's Even If You Bury Us, Our Seeds Will Grow. And so these are our seeds. And I'm hoping if you have teenagers at home, grandchildren, or your own children, you want to have them sit in on this conversation today, it would be great. So just feel free to go ahead and invite them on. It'd be really wonderful. So I'm going to talk a little bit with them. It's just really a conversation today. So I told them not to be nervous. It's just really sharing, things that are on their mind, how they're feeling about all that's going on. And we're just kind of checking in with each other today. And so one of the things I wanted to share, and let me just go back and do my formal introduction for those who are joining and, haven't been a part of the 30-day as of yet. So my name is Karen Dade. I am a doctor of education, and my area of expertise is actually anti-racist, cross-cultural, and social justice education. And so I am always talking with, and I'm a professor. So I'm always talking with students and trying to get them prepared for today's classroom, right? Since I teach the teachers. I'm also the CEO of MIDC, which is Multicultural International Development Company, and the component which we call the WE Network, MIDC WE Network, which stands for Women's Empowerment Network, is actually the host for this 30-day. So again, welcome everyone. We're waving. I want to wave to folks as they're coming in, and just so glad that you could join us. I want to kind of take some things back a little bit and put it into context. Right? Because I was just telling my granddaughters that, they may seem a little young to have this conversation. And for the most part, that's true. They shouldn't have to be going through the things that's happening right now within our society, and they shouldn't have to be stressed over what's happening. But I told them the story about their own mom, who, when she was in the 4th grade and we had moved to a new neighborhood that was predominantly a white neighborhood and white school. And the first day of school, their mom coming up the hill, being chased by other kids and being called the N-word. And at the time, I had 3 younger children, younger than their mom. And I had to sit down all of these babies and have this discussion around race, and that there are people out here that will not like you because of the color of your skin, and that they can do some bad things. So here are some safety things we need to talk about. So I had to have that talk. As with most Black parents, especially with our young Black males, we have the talk with them on what to do when they're stopped by police officers, etc., and so on. This is not normal. And it's not the new norm because it has been going on for so long. And so how do we begin to address these particular things? One of the most important things that I think is to listen to our young people and hear what they're feeling, what kind of support they need from us, And so we're going to kind of get into that conversation. And we were just talking about not only George Floyd, but Breonna Taylor, Ahmed, I think his name is Arbery, Ahmed Arbery. I mean, and these are just within the past, few months. When we talk about January 2020, just in this new year alone. And I can remember a citation from Mike Dyson saying that every 28 hours in America, in the U.S., a black man is killed. And so those are some staggering statistics when we're thinking about all that's going on. And so what I decided to do with you all today is, I love my Instagram too, and I have a lot of different people that I follow, and I especially like to follow, I follow Black educators, I follow Black Women PhD, I follow Therapy is Light, which is the one that I want to use today because it had some really, really great questions. And really, they said in their post today, we shouldn't be asking how you're doing. That's such a general question, especially when we ask kids, young people, how you doing, right? And we have, all of us are programmed just to say fine, when in fact we may not be fine at all. We have things that are going on in our mind. So I kind of like what the Therapist is Light talks about by way of some questions. And so I'll just kind of start there, and we're just going to have kind of a conversation around that as well. And so one of the questions that they say that we should start with is to name the top 3 things that you might be feeling right now. And so again, we're going to be having our conversation. I hope that you're listening in. I am committed to following up on this type of a session. I do think that we need to have some intensives around anti-racist education and just strategies for us as communities on how we can best deal with that. So how are you all feeling today? What are the top 3 feelings that you may be experiencing right now? And this is Addy, and Addy's 15. And this is Ellie, and Ellie's going to be 13 next week. So, and by the way, I have 11 grandchildren. They are the teenagers of the whole crew. So I intend to have on more grandchildren on the East Coast to join us this week as well. So how you feeling?
For me, I would say top 3 things. Probably my first one, since there's a lot of things in this world going on right now with the virus and protesting and these riots. I would say I'm feeling pretty uncertain about things or confused because I don't know. This is the first time I've really experienced something like this. Mm-hmm. I guess I'm also feeling relieved or stressed also because I'm done with school, so that's nice. But at the same time, we're still going through this stuff. So yeah, I don't know. And then just to make sure there's some positivity in there, I feel joyful or silly. We were just laughing at the beginning of
pretty silly.
This.
And what about you, Elle? Thanks, Ed.
I'm happy because my birthday is coming up, and I get to celebrate it with you. Yeah. And I'm pretty sad what's going on right now, and I'm not really sure what my last one is. Yeah.
Well, the last one, if I recall, was the fact that you had a lot of packages at the door. Getting ready for her birthday. And actually, we were to be headed to Cape Verde Islands for her 13th birthday. Her sister and I got to go to Paris on her 13th birthday. So, but we just put it off until later. But so now, thank you so much for sharing those particular feelings. And it kind of bodes the question then on how can we feel better about that. Not the idea of being sad that it's happening. I don't know. It's kind of. I'm glad to hear that you are feeling some different emotions. That the reality is that we all are sad, right? But to be able to balance that with some happiness right now, I think that that's really important. what do you think that we could do to help change the situation? And I'm not just talking about the virus. We can come back to that, but more or less because we're on curfew in the Oakland area. I know that around the country people are on different curfews. And so they just changed our curfew from 6:30, I think, now to 8 p.m. So there's a lot going on there. So how can we, what would be your response if someone said, if you could change it today, this whole situation, and that we have, a community in a world that lives in peace and harmony and with justice. If you could wave a magic wand, what would you say as you're trying to wave that wand to make this change?
Well, I would start with equality, make sure everyone is equal and just change for that, because no one should be put in a certain category or position or, be treated differently for their race, especially because we're all humans.
Right.
And we all have the same intentions, and I think I would just start there.
Yeah.
By pretty much just bringing everyone together, because that's what we need to do.
Yeah. And so even with the protests that are going on right now, we do see a lot of people coming together and standing up and saying that, we're so tired of this, we want things to change. And in the process of doing that, people are so angry for not being heard. You have police, once again, that may or may not be charged for what's going on. Yeah. And so what accompanies that is what we're seeing, the idea of, just looting and, tearing down buildings or fires and so on. It's just to be able to really get that voice, to be heard. And so people have been fighting a long time for equality. Yes. And I wish too that we could just take that wand and say, equality for everyone or equity for everyone, which means to be fair with everyone, right? Yes. If you could wave a wand, Ellie, what would you say as you're waving this wand?
Wait, what could it be about? Anything?
About anything, but to make the world a better place from your eyes. What would that look like?
That's no hate. Same with Addy, and everyone gets the same, and jobs and stuff.
Yeah.
And everyone gets chances to get I don't really know.
Equal chances.
Yeah, exactly. Right? I mean, we have folks living, in our own country where you're absolutely right. It is so imbalanced. Yeah. Right? You have people who work very, very long shifts and they get paid so little money compared to others who may not work, half as much and getting paid so much more, or being able to find the proper housing to live. And so you're recognizing all of these things as young people. And this is why I say that we really have to listen to our young people, because they are very much aware. But they're looking at us to say, well, why haven't you changed it? What are we going to do about it? How can you give us some leadership and advice on how we should handle things, right? And so the one thing that I probably want to say at this point is, or ask this question, do you know how this society came to be like that, where they hate others because of the color of their skin? Do you have any idea on how that even started?
Honestly, no, it's pretty crazy. Just because, I know, I learned in history or whatever, we start off people who are living closer to the equator or whatever. Mm-hmm. They're dark, they become darker, right? So I don't understand, why we're treated differently if it's, from the sunlight or whatever. Also, a lot of people are just, we're not born into, hating other people, other skin. I don't know.
I need you in my college classroom because you'd be teaching some of my students.
We're taught those things, and I'm confused why those things keep on getting passed down.
So good. So let's back it up. Let's go way back, at least to the inception of the United States. So when the United States was being formulated, right? and there were already people living here. So you, first of all, you can't go to a continent or a country and say you're discovering it when you have, communities of people living there already, right? And so we pretty much know the history from the perspective of the whole, they called it the melting pot theory, where many, many people were seeking refuge to be able to move somewhere else where they could have food and be able to have greater opportunity, right? Mm-hmm. And so during this sort of first wave of people coming to the United States to be able to have a better life, they were mainly coming from our European countries. So like from Britain would be one, and Ireland. So all of the, as far as the Western countries, right? And so as they were coming, there was a very mixed group. There was a group of people who left because they didn't want to be persecuted because of the things that they believed in. And so one of those groups that I remember, because I grew up on the East Coast, were the Quakers, okay? And so you had the Quakers who believed in equality, right, pretty much. But you also had others that were coming in being indentured servants. They were being let out of prisons. You had others who were very greedy merchants wanting to come to make money, right, and to get land and to partner with the countries that they were coming from to be able to send money back to those countries, okay? So you had all of that happening, but it was going to take a lot to build up this country in the ways in which people were coming in and wanting land and wanting housing. And so at the same time, there was a lot of exploration going on in the world, and they discovered the continent of Africa. And in coming to Africa, they saw that Africa had a whole lot of resources, as well as South America. There were many other lands that had lots of resources, right? And so it started off by trading systems, right? I'll bring you some of this and you'll give me some of that. I'll bring you some of this, you'll give me some of that. And then in that trading came, well, we can take some people over to help us build these houses and work the land and grow the food and everything, right? And so at some point it may have been in agreement, but so swiftly it became forced migration, where they just started capturing and kidnapping people away from and taking them away from their families and putting them onto slave ships and then bringing them through the Americas, not just in the U.S., but South America, a lot of the islands that we know of, and forcing them to work. And they treated them so badly. And I know you've seen a lot. We saw Harriet together, so you know about that particular part of it. But there had to be a lie made up to let everybody feel okay, that it was okay to enslave other people like cattle, right? And so the lie that was made up that blacks were like animals. They had no feelings. They had no language. They had no culture, and it's okay to enslave them because they're supposed to be enslaved. And so that was what was taught to many of the European people who were the ancestors of European culture right now. So that's what was taught. It was also taught about the Native American people, that it's okay to take their land away because they're savages. Right? It was also taught when we talk about people who come from South America, when we talk about Mexican Americans, it was okay for their lands to be taken away as well, because that was part of the United States too. So it was all this stuff going on, and it was teaching the whole of society that, one group is more superior and smarter and better than all these other groups. And so this is how racism became embedded into our society, right? And so it continued, even though, 400 or so years have gone by, we're still
Passing down.
passing the prejudice down. And so it's been generational. And so what you see happen is it's not just prejudice like I hate you because of the color of your skin. It's like how you all were saying in the beginning. It's not equal, things are not equally parsed out to people, right? So some groups get nothing, whereas other groups get a whole lot of privilege. And that's what racism is. It's a system of privilege versus not privileged, right? And so it's a system now that's so ingrained in our society that it's been really, really hard to address. So I want to kind of tell you one more piece of this puzzle and then see if you have any questions from there. So we're understanding, and now let me tell you this, the color of our skin is all natural, like you said. If you live in warmer climate, you're going to have darker skin. That's melanin in the skin because it's going to keep your skin from burning out.
Yeah.
Your beautiful curly hair is going to keep your scalp from, right. Exactly. Your color of your eyes, everything, your lips are all wherever your ancestors came from. That's how we look. So it's ridiculous. It's ludicrous to hate someone because of what they look like, right? Because of the color of their skin. Because it's mainly from where we come from for our ancestors. And there are only 3 chemicals that make up skin color. Keratin, right? Keratin and melanin in the skin. So racism, it's not something that's biological that says that people are dumber than the other because of skin color. Again, it is just something that's made up. It's called a social construct. We've constructed it in our society for us to live in that way, okay? So now people always ask, well, why do police seem to be so against black people, especially, right? Black and brown people. Why do they do the things they do? And not every police person is a part of that. But that's also built on another system. The police force was first a militia that was formulated in the United States to protect our government's holdings, and it also was used for, in fact, okay, so I was born in Boston, Massachusetts, right? And I used to always wonder, why do they call that the paddy wagon? The paddy wagon. When the police would come to get you, they say, here comes the paddy wagon. And I'm like, what a paddy wagon? What does a paddy wagon mean, right? And what it really was is that when many of the Irish came, they were treated quite badly. So all new groups, as they would come into the United States, they had to pay a price. But if you were white, you were able to pay that price and then you could move on. If you would blend in with the majority, then you'd be okay, right? But the Irish, in particular, and I'm talking about Boston, but they were given the lowly jobs. So they were hired as bounty hunters to catch runaway, I don't say slaves because we're not innately slaves. So we were enslaved. So they were paid money to track down enslaved African people, right? And so this whole notion of hating blacks and catching them and doing these things to them started way back. Just as we're talking about coming out of slavery, right? And then we're entering these other systems. And so the mindset of racism has been ingrained not only with our law enforcement, but within our governments and within many of the businesses and things. And pretty much nowadays, it's about have and have-nots, right? So you have very greedy corporations who are culprits that make sure that they're polluting everyone's mind to believe these things as they make profit, as they make money. So it's really about, in the end, it's about money. It's about greed. It's about lust. And so how do we, because there are a lot of Americans that don't believe in what we're doing right now. And this is why you see so many protests that are very inclusive of many different cultures now, right?
I had to sit on this one. This is so good.
Yeah. So we have three generations now. 3 generations now in the house, and so of course my daughter Neanda. And so these are talks. So let me just bring this back to, hey Nee, let me bring this back to some reality. Is that, we're having this conversation, and it goes back to what I said at first. A lot of us don't understand what's happening because we don't know our history. Right. We don't know how the things have happened and why they're still sticking around, right? And so I say that when we're having talks with our children, and everyone should be having talks with their children, making it age appropriate, but still having those talks, okay? And so when we're talking, with our children, and our children want to know the real deal because they're the ones that are out there, and they're the ones that are going to have to face all of the things that are happening. We can't just tell them how to stay safe. We have to explain to them why these things are going on so that they can, shut these things down, and then in their own circles when they see things happening, right? That they can educate. So did that help a little? Did that help a little bit to understand kind of how this stuff got started?
Yes.
And so if it gets started, it can be ended. But it's going to take all of us, right? And you are the seeds. And it is our obligation. It's my obligation as your grandmother, as an elder in a community, and the things that I know. Because you had said that you've never seen these things before, honey. When I was exactly your age, Addy, 15, and I said 67, but I meant 68. 1968, Watts riots, where we were burning down all kinds of the same thing that you see now with not only the protests and the responses that we're having, the same. It's like playing a broken record for me. And seeing that, because we were fed up back then too. Martin Luther King had been murdered, Malcolm X, all of our Black Panthers. I come up from a very militant neighborhood where we were predominantly Black. And so I had all the activists when I was young, right? So we stood on those front lines. I saw my daddy get hit upside the head with a bottle when we were protesting. My brother, later on, in later years, was thrown through a plate glass window where it took 3 weeks to try to get all of the glass out of his body for just protesting. Uncle Wayne was hit upside the head with a police stick and had all kinds of stitches in his head. I have seen so many things happen with my family, all for the same thing that we're fighting for still today. And so as an elder, this is why I've been doing the self-love, is because I think when we really love ourselves, there's much more to us than what we're taught in society. Just like we're taught how to hate one another, and that's wrong, right? We're also taught not to know who we are. And we have a lot of power. And we've been stripped of knowing that. And so I've been trying to work in this 30-day to get us all back to knowing how powerful we are through the heart and through our thinking.
I'm sorry to interrupt. Can I ask a question too before you guys go on? That relates to the kids. And, we live in a community where they're the minority. I mean, if you look around in our community right now, it's really safe, it's quiet, it's a bubble. And for me as a parent, I did mention online that they were just getting back from their dad who was white. And they were with him for a week. So I haven't had the opportunity to have a conversation with them. But I just want to see, have they reached out to their friends? Because for me, I have a lot of friends who are non-Black, brown, and we have opened up dialogue because I think it's very important that we are all human and we all are experiencing this. And it's important for them to understand and feel comfortable enough to come to us. So my question would be, has any of your friends reached out? Do they understand this? Do you feel comfortable even having a conversation with them? Are you embarrassed about what's going on? How are you feeling in that regard? as far as it pertains to their peers.
Have you been able to talk to
Well,
friends?
for me, I've talked to a lot of people, and also
I'm doing what Sister Ray
I
told
know
us.
a lot of people
Yeah.
in our community, or like in my school, for example, and myself also. I've been like doing like research and seeing which poster best post to put on like my story, so it can really like send messages.
Resonate.
And I know that's like, it's just something that I can do to at least spread a little bit of awareness.
Right.
But yeah, I've been doing that, and I've been talking a lot about everything.
My next question would be, and that was a great response. My next question would be, do you feel as though when you see people protesting and you see looting and riots, I hope you also understand that there are those who are there with intention, and then there are those who are there without good intention. And so that typically are the looters, and you have to talk about disparities, and we're in a climate where people are not working. It's the highest for unemployment rate. So I personally understand the frustrations. That's not necessarily what I would do, but I understand the fight. So for you all, when you're looking at the protests, how do you feel about the looting? Okay. How do you feel about those who are actually marching?
Yeah. And then maybe I can
well, it's obviously a little bit scary.
Oh yeah, you can answer.
Because we have the people who are actually trying to fight for this, and then we have the people who are just,
But you know the
times,
difference.
like you said,
you can see the
looting,
difference.
like stealing and stuff.
Okay.
But,
and that's what Auntie was saying. Do you all know what's going on? Oh, they know what's going on. They've been following everything because we're right in the midst of it. Right? We're right here. So just to even go to the store to get food, I went to CVS, to pick things up that were important for me to get, and all the CVS stores are closed,
that's because they're
etc.
Trump
So
supporters.
So, and we're boycotting, which is part of what we need to go back to. There's so many things we need to do, to really make real change, for real, lasting change, right? And so, I hear you with regard to that. Now, the news, the media is one of the entities that help to brainwash us to think certain things, right? So oftentimes they're building a lot of fear within us by showing things over and over, or they're talking about looting and not talking about how this police officer, not just one police officer, there were a number of police officers that contributed horrifically to the death of George Floyd. Okay, but we want to focus. The news oftentimes want to focus on look at them looting, look at them. But I think I said this yesterday, is that it's also a known fact that people want to say that this is what the black people are doing. Right. It's not just black people. So I do want to just clarify that because that's what gets shown on the news.
Yeah, they're really focusing it on the black people.
Right.
That's how they.
And that's the way they keep.
That's how they evoke fear. This is what's been going on for a long time, and that's the question that I wanted to ask them too. Especially is like, do you understand that about the injustices, and that of course they're going to depict that, but I'm recognizing and realizing now that a lot of the imagery that I'm seeing,
and I'm reading a lot of coming on
unity.
People are saying the same thing.
I'm seeing unity now, and we need to see more of that. And we all collectively, as a collective, if you all can hear me, need to start showing those images of unity where police officers are kneeling, where police officers are crying and saying that they're fighting for us as well, because I believe that in itself shows what we stand for.
And that's why I don't only use news as my source to everything, because there's obviously more sources that show really what's going on, and I've seen a lot of that, of kneeling and either like marching together or even doing like peaceful protests with the cops marching with them or officers marching with them.
Are you afraid of police yourself?
I don't really know.
Yeah, and I would think that we all have to take precautions, and I know that you've picked up on that. Even as females, we need to be concerned about that. This is such a powerful conversation, and we have to listen to our younger people, because she just answered a question that many adults don't even have an understanding or handle on. as it comes to unifying and the importance of that. The one thing that I want to remind people that, especially those of us from the black community, and because I've gone through this a lot, it is wonderful when we come together as human beings to stand up for a cause that everyone, when we talk about justice for everyone, right? But oftentimes, when it's all said and done, when it feels like it's over with, then those who have stood with us, they go back to their, comfort zones. And we're still here fighting the good fight, right? And so I want to say that allies, I want to address that word allies when we talk about, for instance, white allies, which means, if I'm your ally, that means I'm going to back you up. I'm going to be, more than a friend to you. I'm going to be there no matter what. If I say I'm your ally, I'm with you, right? If stuff goes down, I'm with you, right? And that I owe that to you. And so I don't want to just say that we have white allies. I would rather say that it's all of our responsibility to make this change. And so we all need to stand up, and we shouldn't have a sense of sympathy from the standpoint that, these poor, black folks, they're being treated in this way again. But it should be, it's our responsibility to straighten this out. That means we have to change the way we think about things that we've been brainwashed to think about. So there's a lot of work for all of us, is what I'm saying, to straighten up. So it's not your jobs to have to teach others about race, right? You have important things to do as young women in life that don't necessarily shouldn't be extra burden to have to teach everybody on how to understand. I want you to understand that, okay? That's not your job to have to do that. And that's what often happens, that you'll have people look at you and say, well, can you tell us what the problem is?
But if you feel compelled,
right?
I feel like if they feel compelled to say something, how they feel.
So don't misunderstand. Yeah. Don't misunderstand what I'm saying. I'm saying it from the perspective when students are in the classroom, and this happens all the time. I'm a professor, I see it all the time. I work with teachers, I see it all the time. Oftentimes when a student of color is in a classroom, that student is often asked to explain their whole race and identity. And that's not okay. What's okay is when the student, when the child decides that they want to share and speak out or speak on something, then that is okay. But not to be forced to have to be the person to be responsible for others when everyone should be responsible in this. So, like I said, there's so many things to share when we begin to talk about, race issues in this country and the impact that it is having within our black community. And I also want to say that, whether or not if you're biracial, bicultural, there was a law that was made. Do y'all know about the one drop of blood law? If you had one drop, what do you know about
black blood, then that you're considered like in the group of like black people?
Absolutely.
You mean like in your genetics?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And so that was started way back again during slavery period, but it still exists today. The mindset still exists today. If you have one drop of black blood, you are considered a black person. Okay? And that's fine, and I'm proud of being black. But when that means that you're a black person, and that means that you're to be treated, in a bad way because of your culture, then there's an issue there. So I want you to know that, even with your skin tones, and we have privilege because, we talked about colorism. That's going to be another whole show because that takes up a lot of time as well. But we stand together, we stand united, and we're asking all of those. This is one race. It's the human race. And we have that responsibility. Okay, coming in live, and then we're gonna D, and we'll go with D, and then we'll be shutting down very shortly. I know we're over 10. Hi, D, you're on.
She's waiting.
You're on, D. I see your ceiling. I don't see you.
Who said I was coming on? What's going on?
Okay, well, you pressed request to come in.
I
All
ain't impressed
all right.
nothing.
Oh, well, hang up. Bye.
I love you. Bye.
Love
Love
you.
it. Okay.
Okay. Okay. I don't know how that happened. It said view requests. Okay. All right. At any rate, again, I want to thank my beautiful granddaughters right here. You are my lifeline. You are my legacy, your parents' legacy. We love you. And we'll be in boot camp this summer. I'm really feeling like our young people need to, the things that I'm teaching in college classrooms, I'm going to go ahead and make that a curriculum for online. And so parents and grandparents, if you're seeking to, want to, have your children know a little more, to be able to understand and to be able to work through. And that's also building on that self-love that we're talking about. Just stay tuned for how we'll be able to do that. It's just the beginning of the conversation. And before we go, I also want to thank our past guests all week long. We've had some wonderful guests, starting with Dr. Dee Gudger, who is a counselor. And we're talking about the different things that impact us and how we can have some strategies to feel better, right? We've been doing a lot of meditation and doing all kinds of different things all week long. We've had Konami Chisholm on, who talked about organic gardening and planting those seeds and growing our own food, because who knows what kinds of things will happen. So we can be able to be prepared to share. We've had Sister Rayleigh on, and she gave us some just wonderful tips again on self-love and the importance of breathing through some of this. And that's what I would say. If you're, these techniques that we've been learning, if we're practicing them, that's going to help keep the stress and stuff down as we think of ways that we can begin to address it as well. I want to thank our special guest, Quarantina. In Quarantina, she really doesn't like to be asked to have to come on a show and all of that. But she just helped us with humor, look at how we're denying so many different things. And lastly, I want to thank Devin yesterday with such an amazing photography gallery exhibit on the mood of the people today. So she gave us so much hope, yet she gave us the reality, and she talked us through that. So again, I want to thank my family for coming on. We're going to continue this talk. Tomorrow we'll have Young Cool Moms on, and she's going to be talking about how to talk to the younger, even younger than you, right? So your younger 4-year-old sister, who's actually been on here and showed us all the breathing technique that she and I do together with the yoga. So just loving you. What can we all call on? You know how I do at the end of the show, and it seems silly, but it's important. So can we all do that all together? But you're calling your own names and you say how much you love, and let's everybody out there do the same thing. Okay. So here we go. We're calling our names, and when we call our names, we're calling their ancestor spirits to just fill our beings with the knowledge that we need to not only survive, but to thrive in this world, to make this world better than what it is today. So let's call it off. Ready? Karen, Bernadette, Cardoza, McLean, Dave. I love you. You are so blessed. Thank you for bringing me my amazing children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren. One more time. Karen, Bernadette, Cardoza, McLean, Dade. I love you. And audience, we love you from the bottom of our hearts. We'll see you tomorrow. Okay? Ashe.
Bye.